Hello again. We are Chris Lee and Chase Robinson of Southeastern 16 here to preview and predict an outcome on Bowling Green's trip to College Station to face the Texas A&M Aggies. 6:30 Central on ESPN Plus or SEC Plus. A&M is about a 22-point favorite with an over-under of 52.5 early in the week, which makes for a predicted final score of A&M 37, Bowling Green 15. Now, Bowling Green lost 34-27 to Penn State a couple of weeks ago. So we've seen some tricky games involving MAC teams, Chase Robinson. This has maybe got some potential to be one of those based on what we saw against the Nittany Lions a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, they got some good players. I was very intrigued by them when I was doing some research to do this and just looking at some of the numbers of the players. So yeah, I think this is not a game you could take lightly. Mike Elko alluded to that. I listened to his press conference. Just you can't take a team like this lightly because this is one of those teams that can sneak up and beat you.
We'll break down the matchup momentarily, but first we remind you BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff. Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino. Get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with over 150 slots games. Head to the website today. Get in on all the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. Let's start with a look at that side of the matchup when Bowling Green's got the ball. Bowling Green is averaging, Chase, 34 points a game, 61 offensive snaps on average, a 1.6% turnover rate. They run it 48% of the time. 7.2 yards per rushing play and 6.7 per passing play. A&M's defense, on the other hand, been pretty good. Aggies allowing 17.7 points a game on just 59 snaps, so they're keeping the defense off the field. 2.8% turnover rate. Teams run it 53% of the time against the Aggies. 4.8 yards per rushing play, 5.8 per passing play. We got a familiar name to SEC fans at quarterback for Bowling Green, and it's Connor Bazelak. Tell us a little bit about him and the Bowling Green offense, Chase.
Yeah, he's I think he was a great piece to what they needed at Bowling Green. He's 40 of 61 so far this year, 422 yards, 65, close to 66% completion rate. He's thrown a couple of touchdowns. He has thrown a couple of interceptions, which, and I think one of the things that Bowling Green is focusing on is their offensive line play, giving Bazelak a little more time, a little more room to work. I think that's something that they're looking to improve on as I was researching them. But yeah, Bazelak, I think having a guy who's been on an SEC roster kind of leading your team, I think is really big for Bowling Green. But one offensive player that really stands out to me, and that is their tight end, Harold Fannin. He leads the nation. He's number one in the nation in several categories as a tight end. Tight end receiving yards, he's number one in the nation at 204. Tight end yards after catch, he has 131 of those, leads the nation, and leads the nation as a tight end in first down receptions at 13. And so they utilize Harold Fannin a lot at the tight end position. And I think that's different from what a lot of teams do, from what Texas A&M has seen. So that's something I'm looking at them trying to utilize against A&M. But Fannin is just a dynamic pass catcher and does a great job there at tight end. So Bazelak really likes him as a target. Some other guys, that is Malcolm Johnson, has 114 yards and a touchdown on the year. They've got a really dynamic running back in Terry and Stewart. Really like what I've seen from him and some highlights. He has 14 carries for 161 yards and 3 touchdowns on the year. Jamal Johnson, also a guy, as well as Jason Patterson. So those are some backs that they utilize, but they really like going to the air. Bazelak does have a good arm, and he's able to find guys like Fannin to get the job done. So Harold Fannin, though, their tight end, who leads the nation in a lot of categories, he gets a lot of touches for this Bowling Green Falcons team.
Yeah, A&M's defense was expected to be pretty good, and I'd say has been so far. The back seven's been pretty good. Marcus Ratcliffe led them in tackles last week in the win at Florida, which was probably more lopsided than the 33-20 final suggested. Torian York had 5 tackles. He's been good for them. Will Lee, the third, has been a nice addition in the secondary. But I think the big surprise is you would have thought, based on all the preseason talk, that this would have been a sack machine. Now, they did get 2 last week. They've got 4 on the year now. Shemar Stewart had a half sack. He's expected to be one of their bigger guys. And Nick Scourton didn't have a sack last week, just 1 tackle that was for loss. So we'll look to see if the Aggies can kind of pick it up in terms of the sacks against an offensive line that I think hasn't given one up yet. So that'll be a kind of an interesting side of the matchup to watch. Other end of the matchup, when A&M's got the ball, of course, we saw Marcel Reed get the start last week. Bowling Green's defense has given up 21.3 points a game on 62 snaps. It's got a turnover rate just under 1%. Teams run it on the Falcons 59% of the time, 6.4 yards per rushing play. That's a lot, and that's adjusted 4 sacks, 7.4 per pass play. So the numbers per play, not super great for Bowling Green. Again, it's played a weird schedule. You've had Fordham and you've had Penn State. A&M's offense so far, 32.7 points a game, 1.0 turnover rate percentage. They run it 64% of the time, and they get 6.2 yards per pass play, also the same per rushing play. We saw a switch at quarterback last week to Marcel Reed, and that seemed to do some wonders. You had a multifaceted rushing attack last week for the Aggies. And so I think some good signs for that offense last week. You still got a lot of receivers who can make some plays. Just a very deep receiving room. Cyrus Allen stepped up last week, led them in receiving with 3 for 81, the transfer. So it feels like the offense took a step up in a nice direction last week. Florida's defense won't be the best they'll face. What does Bowling Green bring to the game on this side of the ball, Chase?
Yeah, they do. They like to bring a big pass rush, and that's led by Charles Rosser and Anthony Hawkins. Those are 2 names to watch. They've combined for I think 6 or 7 sacks. They had 2 versus Penn State, 5 versus Fordham, and I was trying to get the number right there. But yeah, those 2 guys are names to watch defensively. Joseph Sipp, too, linebacker, leads the team in tackles with 16, as C.J. Brown as well with 13 tackles and some tackles for loss there. And so I think this defense, again, is going to be faced with a tough challenge, because I feel like Marcel Reed came in and really took control of the game for A&M last week. And yeah, they did take big improvements offensively. And so Bowling Green has struggled defensively. But then again, I think they did what they could against Penn State to keep that game close. And so I think that's something, and that's the last game they've played. So I think they may have some momentum defensively because they were able to get some big stops when they needed to against the Nittany Lions.
Let's get on to picks and why, and I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I'm going to take Texas A&M. I don't think Bowling Green is a pushover by any means. I mean, it was a close game against a good Penn State team who a lot of people think might be in the college football playoff. And so I think this is a good Bowling Green team, but I think Texas A&M with Marcel Reed, with some of these guys stepping up, like I feel like they're starting to find themselves offensively. And I think that's a really good thing for the Aggies. So I've got Texas A&M in this one.
I do too. I would like to see A&M's run defense get a little better. And you're facing a team that can get after the quarterback. I mean, there's some things here. The MAC is no pushover. We've seen 2 big upsets involving MAC teams, and we kind of warned Kentucky a little bit about what's coming with Ohio. I think Kentucky will win that game too. But I like A&M. I like the strides they made last week, but don't take the Falcons lightly, as Penn State found out. All right, we are here to predict every single SEC game this week. We cover football, baseball, and basketball year-round, all 3 of those year-round. Best way to get it, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, tell a friend. Advertising inquiries, we reach millions a year. Caroline.smith@southeastern14.com. For Chase Robinson, I'm Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 16, presented by BetOnline.